tax reform will protect low-income and middle-income households, not the wealthy and well-connected. They can call me all they want. It's not going to help.
For all of us, this is a now or never moment.
I hope that there will be some Democrats who are willing to work with us.
This is welfare, helping those of great wealth with more tax breaks.
If I could say it as simple as possible, I would say that this tax reform conversation is about hashtag keep yo money.
I got some chuckles there. Senator Scott talking about this rollout. We'll go through some of the details as they stand now. Remember, this is the beginning of the process. A lot of the details are worked out on Capitol Hill during the process, and they have to pass a budget first. But as it stands tonight, individual creates 3 brackets, 12%, 25%, and 35%. There could be a 4th, depending on what Capitol Hill does. Doubles the standard deduction to $12,000 for a single person, $24,000 for a married couple. Replaces the personal exemption for dependents with an expanded non-refundable portion for the child tax credit, something higher. They don't have a number yet. Eliminates most itemized deductions, keeps those for mortgage, interest, and charitable contributions. Repeals the alternative minimum tax, eliminates the estate tax and generation skipping taxes, eliminates state and local tax deduction. On the corporate side, you go from 35% to 20%, eliminates the corporate alternative minimum tax, maximum small business rate of 25%. That's taxed at the individual level for some of those businesses. Partial limitation on interest deduction for C corporations, allows full expensing for short-lived capital investments such as equipment and machinery for at least 5 years. Keeps research and development tax credit along with low-income housing credit, eliminates Section 199 manufacturing deduction. Finally, on international, moves to a territorial tax system which doesn't tax business profits made outside the country. As a transition, one-time tax on previously accumulated profits earned overseas, that's the repatriation of money, and calls for a lower tax rate on liquid foreign assets and a higher tax rate on cash profits. Okay, take a breath. But at least you have the details as they stand now. Let's bring in our panel. Guy Benson, political editor at townhall.com. Susan Page, Washington bureau chief at USA Today. And Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics co-founder and publisher. They seem optimistic, Tom.
They do, and after the follies of healthcare, this was actually, by the current standards, a pretty smooth rollout. Everybody was unified around the same message. There's obviously some squabbling to be done among Republicans, but by and large, they seem unified. And the pressure is on now. I think all the Republicans are feeling the pressure because of the failures. They want to get this done. They want to get it passed by the end of the year so they can have something to point to, a major accomplishment under this administration.
You went to Indiana, Susan, and he had Joe Donnelly, the Democrat, up for re-election in 2018. There were actually 10 Senate Democrats up for re-election in states that Donald Trump won. And obviously, I think we'll probably see him visit maybe all 10 of those states.
And, you know, there are some things that are appealing about the tax bill for Democrats that wasn't the case with health care reform, because lowering the corporate tax rate to 20%, everybody agrees that that'd be a good idea for the U.S. economy. Simplifying the number of brackets, I think that's an appealing thing. So maybe you have the possibility of getting some Democratic support. And you know from the experience with health care that gives you a cushion that you probably need, even if you manage to do a kind of maneuver where you can avoid a Democratic filibuster. But the problem with the rollout they had today was that there are so many unanswered questions. There are so many unanswered questions about how you pay to offset at least some of the cost of the tax cuts. The other problem is, as we know with tax reform, the devil is really in the details. And you look at every single proposal made, including, for instance, ending the deductibility of state and local taxes. That's going to be a huge battle that will affect not only Democrats but Republicans who represent high-tax states.
Because how to figure out how this balances out, becomes revenue neutral, is really the shell game that is Capitol Hill. I mean, they're talking about dynamic scoring that essentially estimates what all of the money in people's pockets means for businesses that they're going to spend the money at.
Right. So there's a number of moving parts here. But overall, I agree that the rollout today was strong. I thought the speech from the president was good. And what struck me as I watched it was detailed and specific and defending proactively a policy. We never saw that from him on health care. We saw it on day one on tax reform. I think that that's telling. In terms of some of these details, I mean, there are big questions. How large will the child tax credits be, for example? How would they try to limit abuses of these pass-through corporations having a lower rate than individuals, and people might try to game that system? We have to wait and see what Congress comes up with. But I was sitting at this desk this morning with Maria Bartiromo, who was in town on Fox Business Network. Sitting next to me was Ted Cruz, and he said something that is a bit sobering from a Republican perspective. He said, we're all excited, we're all very hopeful, but this is not a done deal, and these negotiations could take many months.
Tom?
Well, and Mark Short, just when you asked him about the plan, he did not say that it was going to be deficit neutral. I mean, he really deflected on that, and so I think that may be where this is headed. The Republicans are like, look, we need growth. That's the object here, and we'll deal with deficits later.
Right. They all become Art Laffer up there on supply side.
Right.
And long gone are the debt clocks behind anybody talking on the campaign trail. Yeah.
You know, one of the things I think will be a test here is President Trump continues to say this is going to help middle-class people, not rich people. And I think that there will be a big debate when we know all the details about who actually gets the lion's share of the help with this tax bill, and whether if he does fashion a tax bill that gives most of its benefits to the middle class, which means that maybe you add that fourth bracket to hit a higher bracket to hit people at the top of the income scale. Will Republicans agree to that? Would Republicans agree to a plan that, in effect, raised taxes on the wealthy?
Yeah, I think you'd have to look at that. I mean, if they get rid of the estate tax and the corporate tax goes down to 20%, there probably are a lot of Republicans who would sign on to that. I want to play the soundbite about Tom Price, and he, not to rhyme here, is on thin ice.
Tom Price spent a lot of money on that charter plane. Is that cool?
I was looking into it, and I will look into it, and I will tell you personally, I'm not happy about it. I am not happy about it.
What are you going to do about it, Mr. President?
I'm going to look at it. I am not happy about it, and I let him know it. Hopefully, he's going to get the votes tomorrow to start our path toward killing this horrible thing known as Obamacare. He better get him. Oh, he better. Otherwise, I'll say, Tom, you're fired. I'll get somebody.
That's then and now. He's not happy about the planes and said, we'll see. The last time he said we'll see was when Steve Bannon was still in the White House.
He likes we'll see. That's a go-to for him. Yeah. But I do think that Price might be on some shaky ground here, because you look at the multiple failures on the health care front. The Republicans didn't have a unified plan that they could all rally behind right out of the gate, which is what many Republican voters hoped and sort of assumed that they would have. And now you add in this terribly unforced error by Price, spending lavishly on private jets, including a flight where he drove to Dulles, 45 minutes from here, to fly 20 minutes to Philadelphia at a cost of $25,000 or something. You know, this is supposed to be the party of fiscal discipline, and the new details coming out from Politico, it looks terrible. And I think the populist instincts of Donald Trump he knows that it looks bad, which is why he said what he said.
Think he hangs in there?
Look, the last thing that Trump wants right now, I think, though, is to go through the firing of a cabinet person and going through the process again. It'll deflect from this push on taxes. He may hang in there until the end of the year, until this thing gets done, and then maybe he gets let go.
And the question is whether health care does get done, and that's a whole nother topic.